cartilage, right? We all know there are different types of cartilage. What are the different types of cartilage that are available in our body? The first one that we know is called as hyaline cartilage, right? Hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is the one which you see in the joint surfaces. This is the one which is more important for us in orthopedics in our exams, right? So hyaline cartilage is the first type of cartilage which is most frequently seen in the joints. The second type of cartilage is the fibrocartilage. Where do you see fibrocartilage? You see in two locations. One is you see when the ligaments or tendons attach to the bone. The second location that you see is when articular cartilage is injured. It heals in the form of a fibrocartilage. When articular cartilage is injured, it heals in the form of a fibrocartilage. So that is the second one. The third one we know is of fibroelastic cartilage. Where do you see fibroelastic cartilage? We see in the meniscus. And the fourth variety that we see is the elastic cartilage, which helps in the breathing process, and it is seen in the trachea. And the fifth variety which is seen is the physeal cartilage or growth plate, where you can see it in another video, right? Growth plate. So there are 5 different varieties of cartilage seen in the body, and the most common, most important one for us is the articular cartilage or the hyaline cartilage, which we will discuss in a little greater detail today. So what is the articular cartilage function? Basic function is it is extremely smooth, right? And it reduces the friction as much as possible for joint function, right? And it distributes the load. It takes quite a bit of the load and prevents loading from any single point. Loading in a single point is avoided. So what are the functions of the cartilage? It is smooth, that is it decreases friction, causes good activity, and provides motion to the joints of the body, and it distributes load, prevents damage or loading in a single point, and therefore spreads out the load and decreases the stress shielding or pressure at a single point in the joint. Next, coming to the composition of the cartilage can be divided into extracellular matrix, extracellular component, and cellular component, right? The extracellular component can be further divided into water, other proteins like proteoglycans, and quite a lot of collagen is also seen. So percentage by weight. So let us begin with extracellular matrix, or extracellular component is water, proteoglycans, and collagen, and then you have the cellular component. Water forms the most important part of the extracellular component, and it is about 65 to 80% of the extracellular matrix. What is important about water is not compressible, right? So therefore it gives some stability in compression. Number 2, it increases in osteoarthritis and decreases with aging. This is a very big difference between water presence in both the aging process and the osteoarthritis process. Now, because of increased water in osteoarthritis, it increases permeability, decreased strength, and there is a decreased Young's modulus of elasticity as well. So what happens because of this? There's a lot of damage to the cartilage, and there's an osteophyte formation, and the joint rapidly gets destroyed because of the increase in water in osteoarthritis, right? Next, extracellular component. The first extracellular component that we saw is water. The next extracellular component is collagen. Usually it is type 2. Most of it is type 2. The other collagen types are very small amount. They provide tensile strength, right? Water and proteoglycans provide compression strength, whereas collagen provides tensile strength. Collagen makes about 10 to 20% of the mass, right? The third component is the proteoglycans, which forms about 10 to 15% of the extracellular component, and they provide compressive strength. They are hydrophilic. That means they attract water and form aggregan. Hydrophilic, they attract water and they form aggregan. Next, let us move on to the cellular component, right? What is the cellular component? Now, so far we've discussed the extracellular component. The cellular component, it produces collagens, proteoglycans, and enzymes. So what is the basic cellular component? You have chondrocytes, which are formed from the chondroblasts, right? And so these produces collagen, proteoglycans, and enzymes. These are the things that are produced by the chondrocytes. So this is basically about the components of the cartilage. So we have divided the components of the cartilage into extracellular component and a cellular component. In the extracellular component, you have water, which forms about 80 to 90, 65 to 80% of the weight. Then you have collagen, which forms 10 to 20%, and proteoglycans another 10 to 15%. Tensile strength is provided by the collagen. Compressive strength is provided by proteoglycans and water. Type 2 collagen is the most common collagen found in the cartilage. Proteoglycans are hydrophilic with the help of aggrecan. And cellular components are basically chondrocytes and chondroblasts. Now coming to the layers of the articular cartilage, the layers of the articular cartilage are divided into superficial zone, intermediate zone, and deep zone, and after which you have a very important landmark called the tight landmark. In superficial zone, the collagen fibers are parallel to the surface. In the transitional zone, they are intermingled, and in the deep zone, they are perpendicular. So the collagen becomes from parallel to perpendicular towards the deep zone. In the superficial zone, they have flattened chondrocytes and sparse proteoglycans. So proteoglycans are decreased, right? And they have the highest concentration of collagen and lowest concentration of proteoglycans. Highest concentration of collagen and lowest concentration of proteoglycans, forgive me. In the traditional zone where the collagen fibers are intermingled, they don't have a correct orientation, they have a random orientation. Here, this is the thickest layer with round chondrocytes and abundant proteoglycan component. In the deep zone, the fibers are perpendicular to the surface. Collagen fibers are perpendicular to the surface, and they have the highest concentration of proteoglycans, and they have round chondrocytes arranged in column. The next this thing is the landmark is called the tight landmark, which separates the subchondral bone from the cartilage. Any damage here will cause fibrocartilage formation and healing. So the three layers that we see in the cartilage are superficial zone, fibers are parallel to the surface; transitional zone, random fibers; and deep zone, where the fibers are perpendicular to the surface. So how is the cartilage nourished? The cartilage is an avascular structure. There is no blood supply to the cartilage. It receives its blood supply nourishment through the synovial fluid, right? And from the subchondral bone at the base. Subchondral bone from the base. So it has no blood supply of its own, and it relies on glycolysis for ATP production. It's an avascular structure. It is based on synovial fluid nourishment for blood supply, and subchondral bone gives some kind of nourishment. So coming to the mechanical stress, what happens in mechanical stress? So if we have two types of stress that can happen. You have physiologic stress, that means normal loading, and then you have supraphysiological stress. Right? In physiological stress, it stimulates matrix synthesis and decreases chondrolysis, right? If you have supraphysiological stress, that is, you load the joint severely, the pressure is something like more than 5 megapascal, then it decreases matrix. It does the opposite of that, decreases matrix stimulation and increases chondrolysis. This is very important concept for the difference between physiological stress and supraphysiological stress. So therefore, in patients with osteoarthritis, you should ask them to undergo some kind of physiological stress, and you should avoid excessive loading, for example in athletes who do a lot of exercise and loading.